Okay, well, hello everyone. Welcome to Joy Revival. I'm going to just take a few minutes to introduce myself and tell you a little bit about me, just so that you know who your instructor is. So, my name is Shelly Hanson, and I have my husband and I together, we have 6 children and 4 grandchildren. And 4 of our 6 children have grown and flown. They're out of the house. We've got 2 birds left in the nest. And, so we've got lots of busyness, lots of stress, but lots of joy, lots of great things happening. But I come from an extensive background of anxiety, depression, addiction, you name it. Then most recently has been in the last 6 years, panic attacks and some chronic health issues. So, and I am still in this battle with you. So I use these tools that I'm going to teach you. I use them all the time. I'm still working through my stuff, but I am so much better than I was when I started. And so that is what I'm wanting to give away to you guys. But in throughout my life, joy has been something that I have never really been able to attain. I would, I mean, I was a professional joy kill. I was a professional in stress. I really loved to stress out. I really loved anxiety. And I really hated joy for some reason. Even though I longed for it, I couldn't ever achieve it. And I would have these short seasons of joy, but it was like, the other shoe would always drop. And I lived most of my life just in high levels of stress. And I loved Jesus for half of my life. I have loved Jesus, but I was still full of stress. And I was missing the point when James would talk about joy through your trials. I honestly I would pray and wish that the trials would go away so that I could finally experience joy. And that's not life. That's not biblical. That's not even a realistic expectation. But that's truly what I believed. I really believed that I did not have the capacity to experience joy while still going through something difficult. And brain rewiring was the key that unlocked something in my mind that helped me to go, okay, I get it now. I started to understand how God made us, how we can truly prosper in our mind. And it really was life changing when I learned about neuroplasticity and all of those things. I was like, wow, wow, it is possible. I don't have to live in this place for the rest of my life. I'm not broken. That's the thing. I'm not broken. I was just dysregulated. And that was great news. It was so freeing and it was wonderful. So let me just give you some expectations that you can have for Joy Revival. These tools that I'm going to teach you can transform your life. And just like Tiffany said, it will take you engaging your will and doing the work because you're going to get out of it what you put into it. But if you do nothing else except for just listen to the teachings, but if you don't do any of the regulation, which you'll understand what that means in a minute, but if you don't do any of the homework, you will still feel seen, known, and understood. Okay. You will feel less crazy. Okay. You're going to be like, wow, that makes so much sense. Just understanding how we're made and how we have a tendency to go into our stress states and what that means, just the information itself is going to bring you comfort. However, if you want to see actual change happen in your life, then you're going to want to put in the work of the homework. Does that make sense? Because this is a process. This will not happen overnight because you didn't get this way overnight. Okay. So I've been working through this for a few years. I actually discovered brain rewiring probably 2 or 3 years ago. I guess technically 6 years ago, anyway, whatever. I got certified a couple of years ago. And I'm still working through it myself. I'm just so much better than I was. And I have these tools and I use them all the time. But I had 48 years of doing it wrong, of my brain being in constant stress. And I had a lot of trauma. I came from, which I didn't put that in my list. I came from a lot of trauma. Anytime anybody who goes through addiction, you drug yourself through a lot of trauma. And there was a lot of trauma that got me into it too. And you're going to hear about some of it throughout our class because I use it as examples, but a lot of trauma that I went through. So I'm working through it still. So just know that you're not going to leave here in 6 weeks being like, I am completely well. But what you're going to leave here with is tools. You're going to leave with hope. You're going to leave measurably better than when you came in if you do the work. And so, but the hope is the biggest thing because you're going to realize, wow, I can do this. I have the tools to be able to do this on my own. And it's really awesome. The testimony class that we did at the end of the first Joy Revival, it was just amazing. And that was the biggest thing that we heard was that there's hope. They finally have hope to realize that there is a way out of the thinking and the toxicity that they were in. Now, my desire for this class, I want to share with you everything that I know, everything that I've learned over the last 6 years. But your brain might explode if I put that if I condense it down into a 6-week course. But I'm going to try. Okay. So I'm actually going to try to find a sweet spot between lots of really great teaching with your ability and your capacity to hold it. Okay. But just know that your brain's ability to process new information really depends on your nervous system and where you are. And so it's okay that if you are listening to a teaching and you can only pull in half of the information or a quarter of the information, that's okay. Because and you'll learn this later, our brains will sometimes like go into a shutdown state when too much information comes at us. Okay. So if you start to shut down, that's okay. Don't beat yourself up. Don't get frustrated. Just be like, okay, well, my brain hit capacity and I'm good because I learned as much as I'm going to learn right now. And the rest of it, I'll catch it on the playback or something like that. So but I will be repeating myself a lot. Okay. I repeat these concepts a lot. And so repetition brings revelation, right? The other thing that I want to tell you is that sometimes I talk fast. Okay. So if I am moving quicker than your brain likes, then tell me to slow down. Just put it in the comments. Slow your roll, Shelly. Hold on. Back up. I don't understand what you just said. And utilize that chat, put questions in the comments. We're not a very big class, so it's okay to stop and slow down. And just don't be afraid because if you have a question, I guarantee you somebody else has the same question. And but I will do my best to talk slow and or just to slow things down. And I will do my best to kind of pay attention to all of that. Okay. So the next little disclaimer that I want to give you, and then we're going to get into the meat. Okay. So the next disclaimer, if you haven't noticed, I love Jesus and my relationship with him shows up in everything that I do. So throughout this course, I'm going to be giving glory to God and how he made us. And you will be receiving scientific knowledge. Okay. But a lot of times I will also be presenting a biblical lens for how to process that scientific knowledge. So you do not have to be a Christian to receive major healing from the tools that I'm going to give you. But however, you might be sitting there and thinking, this is not what I signed up for. And so I just want you to know ahead of time that this is what you're going to get. So if you feel like, oh, this isn't what I signed up for, I don't want a biblical perspective, you are not obligated to stay. No worries on that. No hard feelings, absolutely at all. You just need to get with us in the next 48 hours and say, hey, just kidding. Can I get a refund? I'm going to back out. And we'll be like, yes, no problem. But you just need to do it in the next 48 hours. Don't come to me at the end of the class after you've gotten all the information, and you know what I'm saying. So we know at the beginning that this is what you're getting and this is what I'm presenting. So that's that. Okay. Do we have any questions in the chat yet? Let me look here to see if there's any activity there. Okay. Oh, Emily, yep, you got your thing worked. Okay. All right. So if you have any questions so far, go ahead and put those in the chat and we'll get to them. So Tiffany, if you would put up our first graphic, the pathways of response. So we're going to get started. If you guys are ready, actually just put in the chat, I'm ready. Give us a thumbs up. Okay. So we call this the pathways of response graphic. And this graphic it's a simple snapshot of the order in which your brain responds to stimulus. Okay, I'm going to let that get back up there before I keep going. Okay. I think it's coming. Okay, I'll keep going. So our brain is very complex. Okay, so the image that's going to come up in just a minute, there it is. Okay, so the image that's coming up, it doesn't capture everything that's happening in our brain, but it does show the general flow that I've observed of how the brain processes experiences, how it processes trials, how it processes circumstances or triggers. Okay, so all of this that's on this graphic, you can see the arrows, all of that unfolds in like a millisecond. Okay, it is before you are even aware that it's happening. So I'm going to go through kind of the flow of it so that it's going to make sense to you. So you can see at the top, it's a trial or circumstance. So a trial is basically what happened. It's the thing that happens. It's a trigger. It's whatever. It's something that you're going through. Trial leads to emotion. Trials make us feel things. Okay. And we instantly get emotion. Emotions will cause our brain to either go into resistance or acceptance. Now, this concept I'm actually going to talk about next week. But based on this, whether we resist it or whether we accept it, our brain then decides, do we need to activate our threat response or do we need to activate our safety response? And you can see how it splits off there into the two different categories. And it's going to split based on the information that it's been given on the trial and on the emotion that's brought up, and whether or not we resist or accept. Our brain is going to be like, oh, we need to be in threat mode. Or our brain is going to be like, oh, I will choose safety. Okay. And then, as you can see on both sides, on safety and threat, we have thoughts, feelings, and actions, because a trial or a circumstance always leads to an action. And we want to be on that safety side. Oftentimes we are reacting out of emotion on the threat side, but I'm going to get into this in a minute. So we're going to go back to the top and break this down slower. Okay. So the trial or the trigger at the top is the thing that happens. There's no emotions or thoughts when it comes to the trial or the circumstance. It's just the thing. And so I've asked Tiffany to share this amazing story with us, and she's going to share it in bite-sized pieces so we can see how it goes, how we go from the trial to the action in the quickness that it does. So Tiffany, share with us your story about Jamin.
Okay. So in 2019, my husband and I became foster parents, and the first placement that we had was two boys. Jamin was 5 at the time, a brand new 5-year-old, And he came into our house with a lot of trauma of his own. And he was trying to get to know us and trying to figure us out. And so he's pretty stinking cute. He's a pretty stinking cute little boy. And when I would take him to the store, he would want absolutely everything, everything he saw. He'd want a new truck. He'd want a new bike. He'd want the candy. He'd want everything. And one particular day, I was taking him to the store and we were shopping for his brother, but he had seen a few things and I had gotten him a few things. But at this particular point and in this particular store, he wanted a watch. And I said, no, no, you cannot have this watch. Well, he proceeds to absolutely break down. He is screaming at the top of his lungs. He's going and hiding in the clothes racks. He is running away from me. He's screaming, no, no, I want the watch, I want the watch, and just running around like an absolute crazy person. Well, this goes on for 5 to 10 minutes. I am not able to calm him down. So finally, I scoop him up, throw him over my shoulders, and start walking out the door with him. Well, one thing that is kind of important to know about Jamin is he is he's not the same color as me. He's he looks very different from me. There is no way that people look at us instinctively and are like, "Oh, they're obviously mother and son. They're obviously, that's obviously what's going on." So I am carrying this beautiful brown baby boy out the door over my shoulder and he is kicking and yelling and screaming, no, no, I don't want to go. And you told me I could have a watch. And so I am just flooded with emotion. My face is beet red. When I get super nervous, I kind of laugh. I usually laugh, especially if I'm panicking. And so I'm laughing, which is not helping the situation at all. My heart is beating fast. I'm just I cannot pull it together. I finally get to the car and I'm a little mad. So I'm putting him in his seat and I'm strapping him in. And this is a little aggressive, right? Because I'm not okay. I am not okay. And so we get in the car and I finally get in my seat and I buckle my belt and I just sit there for a second and oh my, I'm bawling. I'm overcome with emotion. I'm having all of these thoughts of what have we done? Why did we do this? Is this my life now? And so,
Wonderful. We are in this story with you. Okay. So I bet you can all like feel that. Okay. So what happened to her? The trial was I say no to my son and he loses his mind and we have to flee. Okay. So that is the trial. The emotion that hit her instantly. Okay. The emotion in Latin means energy in motion. And so emotion is felt physically and it's felt intuitively. Okay. So emotion is actually different from feelings. They have the same name. They are just experienced differently and they're experienced at different times on the flow chart. Okay. So emotion is the first thing that comes at us, which is what she said, the hot face, the heart beating fast. Um, Emotions can be named like shame or anger or betrayal or whatever, but it's felt physically. Okay, so emotions just come at us like that. And so that's what Tiffany was feeling was probably, what were you feeling? Embarrassment, shame, fear.
Yeah, all of those things. And then and also very frustrated with him
Yeah.
and very and a little furious
Yeah.
that this is going on.
Yeah. So all of those things happen, which that's a great setup for the next thing. So on the flow chart, a trial happens, a trial leads to emotion. Okay. So our brain, the emotion happens, it happens physically, it happens in our brain. So the next step that kind of happens is our brain then decides, am I going to accept this emotion and the trial that I'm going through, or am I going to resist it? And what Tiffany did was resist it, because
Mhm.
resistance is this, no, 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 no. This is not happening right now. Absolutely not. This is way too public. This can't be happening, right? So our brain is like, no, no, I can't do it. And so when we go into resistance of what's happening, well, I'll tell you that in a minute. If we were to go into acceptance, which is not what Tiffany did, if we were to go into acceptance where our brain said, okay, this is happening. I feel these emotions. It's okay for them to be there. This trial is happening. He is losing his mind at Walmart. It's fine. So if we choose acceptance, is when our brain can choose the safety pathway. Okay. So, and again, we're going to talk more about resistance and acceptance next week. But if we can choose the safety pathway, this is what we call our green zone. In the class, we'll call it our green zone. It's technically called our parasympathetic nervous system. But if we can choose acceptance, we will choose that pathway, and we will be, our thoughts will be influenced by our safety. So if we can be in that green zone, because like I said, green zone, okay, so let me tell you about green zone for a second. Green zone is where your rest and digest part of your brain is. This is where our body heals. This is where this is the Forrest Frank song. You know what I'm saying? It's like you're making lemonade out of lemons. It's that kind of, I become my best self when I'm in my green zone. Okay, this is where we want to be most of the time, but this is not where Tiffany was that night. But so if we can be in safety, then our thoughts are influenced by our safety, our place of safety. So if I'm in safety, I'm going to have more coherent problem solving thoughts. And when I have more coherent and problem solving thoughts, I'm going to have more hope filled feelings, because my um, thoughts influence my feelings, and then my feelings influence my actions. So if I am having more hope filled feelings and more hope filled thoughts, then this is where my actions are going to be more faith filled. I'm going to have more problem solving. I'm going to feel less icky and shameful and whatever it is. And this is where we can live out James 1:2. This is where I go through trials, but I keep my joy through them. Does that make sense? We're going to go over this several times, but however, so this is what we want to do. This is how we want to train our brain to be. We want our brain to have a trial, to have the emotion. We don't want to deny the emotion or smush them down, because we as Christians, we like to protect, we like to rebuke our emotions, and we don't do that here. We're not going to do that. We're not going to rebuke emotions. We rebuke demons, not emotions, right? So, we're going to accept them, and we're going to ask for comfort in them. So if we can go into acceptance, we can go into our safety side. However, if we choose, if our brain says, ooh, this emotion is too much for me, and this trial is more than I can bear, our brain will go into resistance, and it will say, absolutely not. I don't want to feel it. I don't like it. No, 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 no. And this is where our threat response will come along and say, I got you. let me help. Tiffany, let me help you. Let me help you. We can engage our 4 F's. That's what we're going to learn about this in just a few minutes. I'm going to tell you more about it. Let's engage our fight, our flight, our freeze, or our fawn. And let me just help you. You in distress? I got you, you know? And so the fight and flight is part of our sympathetic nervous system. The freeze and fawn is part of the dorsal vagal shutdown. But again, I'm going to tell you more about that in a minute. But our thoughts, if we choose the pathway under the threat, then our thoughts are going to be influenced by which 4F we're in, or all of them. Sometimes we're in all of them at once. But if we are in a fight response, we're going to have fighting thoughts. If we are in a flight response, we're going to have flighting thoughts. Get out of here, get me out of here, which is what Tiffany experienced. So she has all this emotion. And so what's in here, one, fight is in her because she's frustrated and she's angry and she's mad. The other one that's engaged is flight because she's like, get me out of here. I'm putting this kid on my shoulder and we are getting out of here. Let's go. And so those are the type of thoughts. Once she got him not so gently in his car seat and she was sitting in the front seat, then she had the thoughts of what were the thoughts again that you were saying? Like, what have we done? What have we gotten ourselves into?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
What have I gotten myself into? Is this going to be my life now?
Yes.
How am I going to learn to handle these outbursts?
Yes.
I must find a solution. Yeah,
Yes.
all of those thoughts were kind of
Yes.
running through my mind.
Yes. Yep. And so all that comes up. So because she's in her threat response, her thoughts can't be trusted because they're going zing, 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 zing. And her feelings are now affected by her thoughts. Her feelings are probably shame, um, hopelessness, probably some abandonment, fear, all those things are popping up in her. And so her actions, we do what we feel. So her actions were get out of here, sit and cry, all that. Not that these things are bad, right? But sometimes they are. Sometimes when we're very, very frustrated, we're a little more rammy than we want to be, right? Or a little more like than we want to be. And so when we do this, so when our brain chooses the resistance pathway and we end up falling into our 4 F's, the way our actions are is we end up living out Romans 7:15, the whole I do what I don't want to do. I end up partnering with my flesh and I do what I don't want to do. And so what we're going to learn in Joy Revival is how to slow down this process and how can I jump over to the acceptance and the safety side of the pathway rather than living my whole life in resistance and in threat. So we're also going to be learning, because here's something else I want to say is a lot of times once you see this laid out, a lot of times what we try to do, we're dissatisfied with our actions, right? We're dissatisfied with our results. And so what we try to do is we go, oh, well, I'm just going to change what I'm doing, or I'm just going to try to change my thoughts. And all of those are good and noble things. Okay. But if you want lasting change, you actually need to go up higher on that flow chart. You actually need to get up higher. You want to, instead of just changing your thoughts, you actually need to change which state you're in. Get out of threat and into safety so that my thoughts actually change a whole lot easier than me forcing them to try to change. The other thing is that we do in Joy Revival is we're going to learn how to deal with the emotion that's even above that. How do I help my emotions feel seen and heard and experienced and comforted? That's what we're supposed to do with emotions is we are supposed to comfort our emotions, not smush them down, hide them in the closet. We're going to call it the dump truck. I think you'll learn about that next week or the week after. But we're not supposed to smush them down. and cover them up with our 4Fs. We're actually supposed to experience them, comfort them, so that we can get to a problem-solving place in our mind. So, is that making sense so far? I hope it is. And we're going to go over this over and over again. And I'm going to get a drink because I'm saying a lot of words. Okay. So if that's good and there's not any questions, if you have questions, throw them in the chat. We're going to move on to the next little mini lesson where I'm going to go deeper into the 4Fs for you. So Tiffany, I'll have you put that graphic up in a minute, but we won't put it up quite yet. So we engage our threat response. We're going to talk about that threat response first. We engage our threat response for a few different things. We engage it for survival. We engage it during trauma. We engage it during stress and for emotional protection. So survival means I am in life impending doom. Like I'm in trouble. Something bad is going to happen. This is why our 4Fs were created, was to keep us alive. This is part of how God designed us and created us, so that when we see a bear, we run away. I actually don't know what are you supposed to do when you see a bear. Are you supposed to hide? You definitely don't fight the bear. But either way, when you see a snake, jump away from it, whatever. We all know that feeling that it feels like. And so when we're in that survival state, something happens and we're like, oh, but the whole point of it was to keep us alive. That's why God created us that way. So our survival is back here in the back of our brain. We don't have access to our frontal lobe when we're in survival like that. And because we don't need that, we don't need logic to make split-second decisions. We need to act. If I see that my child is in the road and there's a car coming, I don't want to logically play out what is going to be the best way to get my child out of the road. Should I yell? Should I run? You know what I'm saying? We just act. It's this, we act out of emotion that it hits us and we just do it automatically. So we need that when we're in our survival state. Now, what ends up happening is that when we experience trauma, our survival states kick in and they kind of stay kicked in and they stay engaged. And we end up staying in our 4Fs longer than what they were intended, because short term, they're super helpful. Long term, not so much. We also tend to lean on those survival states when we're in stress. It just gives us some extra help. It gives us a little extra boost. But also we use it for emotional protection. When we don't want to feel our icky emotions, our 4Fs come along and say, I got you. You don't want to feel sad, abandoned, and lonely? No problem. Let's feel angry instead. That's so much more powerful. That's so much better. Forget about that icky stuff that you don't want to feel, and we'll feel powerful. So, okay, if you will put the graphic up now, Tiffany. So I'll break down each response one by one. And again, we're actually going to take a whole class on talking about the fight response. We'll take a whole class on flight. I'm just giving you a brief overview now. So that fight response is when we are in survival, it means I'm running towards the threat. This is aggressive problem solving that I'm doing. My relational connection goes completely offline because I don't need relational connection if I'm in a life impending doom situation. If I'm helping somebody like in a car crash, in a medical emergency, I don't need my manners. If I'm asking somebody, give me that towel so that I can do a compression, I'm not going to be like, pardon me, sir, lovely madam, would you please hand me a tissue so that I may compress? You know what I'm saying? It's like, give me that, do this, right? So, and that's useful in a life-threatening situation. It's just not so useful when you're in your kitchen making dinner with your kids, right? Like we don't need to pull out that kind of aggression. in those certain circumstances, but we sure do, don't we? So we're usually, if we are locked into that fight response, we're usually angry, aggressive, grumpy, irritable, just, you know what I mean? Just like it's just under the surface, irritated all the time. So that's that fight response. Okay, so the flight response, both the fight and the flight are at the top of this graphic. Those represent the sympathetic nervous system, if you want the sciencey part of this, okay? That sympathetic nervous system is at the top. So the flight response, you can see the guy, it's like a boulder and he's running away from it, right? The way I see it is like a black hole is chasing me. The flight response, when you're in life impending danger, you are running away from the threat. You're trying to solve a problem by moving fast, by getting away from things. So busyness, stress, spinning lots of plates. You know, I've got all these things that I've got to do, a very full schedule. This is flight energy, what we would call flight energy. Because the emotion, remember, emotion is energy in motion. And so if I'm in that flight response, that means I have a whole lot of energy in motion locked into my body. And the way I'm getting it out is by doing all the tasks really fast. I keep my life super busy. So I'm avoiding threat. Usually in my flight response, I'm avoiding the threat of my own emotions. So I stay super busy so that I don't have to feel what I feel when I get really still. I'm going to let that sink in for a minute. But also, the flight response is it's fast moving thoughts, which this is where anxiety lives. So anxious thoughts are simply the flight response, because anxious thoughts are, I'm trying to run away from danger. So I have to spin every worst case scenario that I could possibly spin in order to avoid stepping in a landmine. In order to avoid the danger, I need to know everything that could possibly go wrong. And so that's what that is. That anxious thoughts live in that flight energy most of the time. And so it's just spinning worst case scenarios all the time. So that's the flight on the top. The freeze response over at the bottom left, excuse me. Freeze is part of the dorsal vagal state. Freeze and fawn are part of the dorsal vagal. It's the shutdown state. So freeze comes along, and usually after we've been in fight or flight for too long, or if fight or flight are no longer appropriate, our brain will go into freeze and it'll say, I'm sorry, honey. I love you. Love you. It's time for you to stop it. Like shut her down, power down mode. So in a life impending danger situation, freeze is I remain still until the threat goes away. This is like I'm hiding at the corner of the bank until the bank robbers finish what they're doing and they leave. That's the freeze response. Now, when freeze ends up taking over our whole life, that's usually when we fall into it. It's this understanding of like I ignore the problem and I hope it goes away. I just pretend like things aren't there. If I just stay still enough, then maybe that thing is just going to go away. If I ignore it, it will go away. So this is where we fall into procrastination. Disassociation happens in freeze as well, because I shut off my emotions. I don't want to feel them anymore. I want to just pretend like they're not there. So a lot of times freeze feels like I'm floating above my body and my head is not attached. And so this shutdown state usually is accompanied by feeling numb, feeling depressed. Depression usually comes in really heavy through that freeze response. So if you notice that you're somebody who experiences anxiety and depression, then you're probably living in flight and freeze pretty often. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. So the fawn response, I'll say this 100 times, it deserves its own class. There is no way that we can get to the depths of what fawn represents, even in one whole class setting, but I will try. But fawn says, I become a chameleon in order to neutralize the threat. I'm going to be whatever the situation calls for so that I find safety through me becoming whatever I need to be. So it's the people pleasing, codependency, no boundaries. So I'm looking for safety and I'm looking for value in other people and other things. And I will change and morph into whatever I need to be in order to achieve safety and value. And I know I just opened up all the worms. So let's talk about our green zone for a minute, because this is where we want to be. We want to be in our green zone. Green zone is the goal. Okay. We have safety, peace, joy in our green zone. This is that parasympathetic nervous system. This is where we can access our logic. This is where we can access executive functioning. And what ends up happening, though, is if we're in our fight, flight, freeze, and fawn for most of our life, and we end up spending all kinds of time, lots and lots of time in those states, what happens is that our capacity to be in the green zone, it seems to shrink down to a tiny little pin dot. And so that green that's on the graphic would be like teeny tiny. And it's like our brain wants to experience joy and it wants to experience peace, but we can't because we've trained our brain to be lit up by the fight, flight, freeze, and fawn all the time. And that green zone becomes so teeny tiny, it almost feels unachievable to get there, to get to peace and safety. And so the good news is that we are going to learn tools that will expand that green zone out bigger to allow our brains to choose the path of safety. And because our brain is neuroplastic, which means it will change and heal when we give it the right stimulus, then we can expand our capacity and our ability to be in green, to be in, have our parasympathetic nervous system activated. Now, it's not going to happen overnight. It is a process, but just knowing the information won't put you in green. You do have to do the steps. However, knowing the information makes you feel so hopeful. It's like, wow, okay, this explains my behavior. This explains why I do what I do, because I was stuck in my 4Fs for my whole life. I looked for comfort because 4Fs are also, it's a way to comfort you. And when we're in our 4Fs, we end up finding our comfort through everything else that we shouldn't find our comfort through. You know, it's through food or shopping or addiction or, you know, whatever it is. And so if we can catch the signs of, oh, I'm just in flight. Oh, I'm in freeze. I'm shut down. I'm disconnected from myself. I stopped caring. This is why I've made this decision. This is why these these are the actions that I've taken in my life. That makes so much sense. And so I want you to just take a minute and process that for a second. Like, oh, I'm not an awful person. Because here's what I did. When I realized this, I was like, oh, I'm not forever broken. I'm not an awful person and I'm not crazy. I was just dysregulated. I was just dysregulated. That makes so much sense. I'm so thankful that I figured out that I can heal, that I can get to a place where I can experience joy. It is attainable. It's not forever broken. My brain is not forever broken. I can reactivate that. So I think I just saw the question come up in the chat. Can you be in more than one 4F at a time? Absolutely. Great question. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. And we're actually going to talk about that. Flight and freeze love to partner together. That's called functional freeze. This is where you're doing all the busy things, but you're disconnected emotionally. Or you can be in bed frozen, but your brain is still spinning. Yeah, you can absolutely be in more than one at the same time. A lot of times fight and fawn like to partner up together. Yes, absolutely. You can be in more than one at the same time. And that's super fun. I know that from experience. Okay. Any other questions or thoughts? Are we getting it? You can go ahead and take that down, Tiffany. I want to see some faces. How are we doing? Are we okay? Is it a lot of information? We're doing good? Okay. We're getting ready to go into breakout rooms. So, but before we do that, I do want to leave just a little bit of time for questions if you have them. We're doing super good on time too. So I'm going to copy and paste these questions if I can do it. Yeah. Okay, so let me tell you about the breakout groups right now. So Tiffany will be putting you in a breakout room, and what you're going to do is you're going to answer these questions. Now, I have to give you a pep talk. Okay, you ready for my pep talk? I did a class similar to this a while back, and they did breakout rooms, breakout rooms, and I just thought I was going to die because I was super bad in freeze, and I was like, absolutely not, absolutely not. I don't want to talk to anybody. I just want to, you know what I mean? I just wanted to be in this like little hole, and I didn't want to talk to anybody. So I just want to give you a pep talk that if you're feeling that way, I feel you. I have compassion for you. I know that that's a thing, but I just want you to know it's going to be a small group, and the questions are pretty, you know, if you don't want to share, you don't have to, but this is a safe place. And the best way to heal is through a group setting. It really, really is, because the more you hear that someone else is going through something that's so similar to what you're going through, like it may not be exactly the same, but once you begin to use the language about the flight energy or the fight, you know, all that stuff, and you realize, wow, I am not alone in this. Everybody struggles with the dysregulated nervous system. I feel so seen and so heard. So anyway, that's my little breakout room pep talk. The other thing that I want to tell you is when you first go in there, you might feel super awkward. Like, who's going to talk? Who's going to go first? What are we going to say? Okay. So the way I'm going to have you guys do it this time is you guys can go youngest to oldest. So whoever is the youngest, go first. And whoever is, you know, the oldest would go last, and we'll switch it the next time. So are you guys cool with that? Clear instructions. Now, if you're on a phone, the questions may not show up on the chat. And so whoever's on a computer screen in your group will be able to access both. And so anyway, but if you need help, there is a way to call for help, and we can help get you the questions. Now, Tiffany and I might be popping into the groups just to check on you guys and just to see if you have any questions. So just be aware of that too. So, okay, go ahead and, okay. All right, are we all back in? Well, welcome back. Glad you're here again. Okay, so again, if you have any questions for me, make sure you put those in the comments so that I can answer them. This next part of the class, I'm actually going to teach you about regulation exercises. And so we're going to get into that in just a second. But again, if you have questions, put them in the comments. So one of the things that it's really good to understand, because we realized in the session before that what we want to do is we want to be on the safety side of the pathways of response. You know, we want to be on the safety side. We want our brain to choose our green zone. And so in order to do that, we need to do these things called regulation exercises, because those will activate our parasympathetic nervous system, which is that green zone. So we can't think our way out of stress in the moment. When we're in the moment, we can't think our way out of it. The nervous system doesn't listen to logic when we are in the midst of a stressful moment, but it will listen to the body, which is why things like deep breathing and other things like that are so important, because we want to hack the system to engage our green zone by regulating. Okay. This will send a message of safety straight to the body by doing that. Now, and you'll understand what that means in a minute. But this is because of the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve is it's a cranial nerve, and it starts in the back of your brain stem, and it goes to the vital organs in your body. It goes to your lungs, it goes to your gut, it goes to your heart, all those things. And it receives messages. It sends messages from the brain to the body and from the body to the brain. And the vagus nerve is why, like when you're really nervous, why it is that your body tells you that you're nervous. So if you had to go up in front of 100 people and give a speech, right? You're going to feel that physically. You're probably going to be sweating, right? You're going to have a fast heartbeat. You're going to feel like you're going to die. All those things are going to come, and you're going to feel it physically. That's because it's the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is the mind-body connection. And so through that vagus nerve, when we perceive that our environment is dangerous, that vagus nerve will send signals to the rest of our body to respond so that we can, help ourselves. Like if we're in danger, it will send signals so that we can run away. And so when we're in a state of stress, and we're trying to get out of it, the fastest way to get out of it is actually to go from body to brain rather than brain to body. So it's one thing to go, you're fine, Shelly. Like if you're in the middle of a panic attack and you're trying to tell yourself, you're fine, you're safe, you're safe, you're actually safe, you're actually safe. Well, you can tell yourself that all day long, but your brain, it's going to take a while to grab a hold of that. Whereas if you show your body that you're safe through regulation exercises, it's going to activate that parasympathetic nervous system, and you're going to come out of that issue a lot faster. And that's because of the vagus nerve. So when we do the practices of that I'm going to show you, I'm actually going to give you a regulation menu of different choices that you have, of different ways that you can regulate. It's not just doing an exercise, you're actually teaching your nervous system how to come back to calm and safety and connection. And so the practices will like flip the switch in your brain, and it will switch on the parasympathetic state. It will switch on your green zone. And then you can go into the state of healing. You can go into rest and digest part of your brain. So let me explain it to you like this too. So can you guys see this? This is a bowl of cereal, okay? We're going to imagine that this is our stress bucket, okay? This is our capacity to hold all of the stress, and the cereal is the stress, okay? And when we have lived our whole lives in our 4Fs, we are going to have a pretty full stress bucket. We're going to have a pretty full bowl of cereal. And what we do is if every day we do a regulation exercise, or we do them several times a day, and then we start doing the journaling tool that I'm going to teach. When you begin to do that, the goal becomes, I want to empty out my stress bucket so that I can stay in green longer, so that I can activate green and I can stay there longer. Okay, so when I do a regulation exercise, it's like, okay, there we go. I took some of the load off. Okay, I emptied my bucket a little bit. And so then we go a little bit further and we do it again. And so we do another regulation exercise and we begin to do it. And so then the next day we do 2 regulation exercises again, and we start to feel better. And we do another one again, and we start to feel better. So do you see how in the overall scheme of things, it still looks like we're stressed, right? However, we have lightened the load little bit by little bit, and that's what we're trying to do. I want you to understand that it is a slow process, and you are making progress when you do it. And so you're just going to keep going. Okay, so I've done it for a week. So now I've got way less stress. I put a lot of cereal in here. So I've done it for a week and I've got way less stress, and I'm starting to unload, and I'm making a mess. And so do you see what I'm saying? So it's just, you just keep doing it. If you stay consistent and you begin to empty it, then you're going to be able to have a stress bucket that's lower and lower. So that's the point of that. Now that I've made a giant mess, and there's probably going to be ants in my husband's office. Okay. So One of the regulation exercises that I want to show you is, and I showed this to those that are in the Julian group, and this is the basic exercise, the vagus nerve basic exercise. Okay, so I want to show you this one. This is one of the regulation tools that will empty your stress bucket and activate your green zone like instantly. Now, how long your brain lets you stay in that green zone, that is another question, because your brain might be so used to your four F's that it lets you stay in your green zone for maybe 30 seconds and then it pops you back into your four F's, which that's okay. There's lots of things that we're gonna be doing to help you activate that green zone, okay? So this is the basic nerve, the basic vagus nerve exercise. So if you want to put your hands behind your head, and you can clasp your hands like this, you're going to put it behind your head, and you guys can all do this. And you're going to have your eyes and your nose forward right now. So whenever I ask you to move your eyes, do not move your head. You're only moving your eyes. So your nose is straight forward. And you're going to take just your eyeballs, and you're going to look either to the corner of the room, or you can look at your elbow. I always look at my elbow. It seems to be easier. And you're going to do that, and you're going to sit there until you sigh or swallow or yawn. And it could take 30 to 60 seconds, so you can sit there as long as you need to. Sigh, swallow, or yawn. And then once you have done it on the one side, you're going to take your eyeballs, just your eyeballs, and you're going to do it again on the other side. That one was faster for me. And then once you've done it, you can go ahead and pull your arms down. And sometimes it takes a minute, and it's okay. I'm just gonna like yawn, the contagious yawn. Okay, so that particular exercise is something that you can do as many times a day as you want to. And I usually tell people to do habit stacking. So what you'll want to do is you will want to um, take this exercise, and you're going to want to do it on top of a habit that you already do every day. So I usually say attach it to going to the restroom, because, however many times a day that you go to the restroom, you can do this vagus nerve exercise. It's another great idea for this is to do it before you eat, because you are activating your parasympathetic nervous system. You're activating that green zone, which is your rest and digest part of your brain. So if you want to digest your food really well, you want to be in the green zone when you eat. So you can do this. You can do this little exercise, and you'll come into your green zone. Then you can eat your food, and hopefully your body responds and it stays there and it digests your food really well. But this is just one example of the regulation that we do. And so, Tiffany, do you have the regulation menu? Did I tell you that? No? Okay. Can you grab it really quick? Is that something that's doable? Okay. So I am going to go over the homework that's going to be in your email that comes to you tomorrow. Oh, whoops. Sorry. Did I lose you guys? Probably because I did something weird to my computer screen. Okay, there we go. So once she gets that up here, I'll show you guys what we're doing here. I think I saw something come up in the comments. So I was going to look at it real quick. If the eye movements make you dizzy, does that mean anything? I think it just, yeah. I think it just means that your nervous system, because I get dizzy sometimes too. And so if that's the case, lay down when you do it. You can lay on your back and do it. But I think that it just means that I get dizzy a lot when I'm trying to do it as well. And the signal for me is I'm thinking, oh, well, I guess I'm pretty activated. And so that's what I'm thinking. So, okay. This regulation menu this is part of your homework. So what you're going to do is every day that until we come back together again, I want you to do 2 of these per day. You're going to choose 2 of these in this regulation menu to do each day. Sorry, I'm trying to make my screen work so that you can see it. Okay, so the first thing that's on this list, you can do something called wins and gratitude. So you're going to make a list of wins and things that you're thankful for. This is something that you can do not while you're in the middle of crisis. This is going to be like prevention. This is going to be, I'm going to start my day in my green zone. And so you sit down and make a list of wins and the things that you're thankful for. And here's why. When our green zone is the tiny little pin dot, we actually have to train our brain that safety is safe again because we currently aren't believing that it's safe. And so when we do things like make lists of wins and gratitude, then what we're doing is we're beginning to allow our brain to recognize, oh, this is actually safe. Oh, good things are actually happening to me. Oh, I am grateful for these things. And it begins to shift something in our brain because when we're in our 4Fs all the time, we don't think that good things can happen. We don't notice them. The only thing that we notice when we're in our 4Fs is threat. And we want to begin to notice good things. So that's the point of that. The other thing is wonder. Go and experience the awe and wonder of God. Go on a nature walk. And I know it's getting cold, so ooh and boo. I don't want to be out in that. But so you can go on a walk, a bike ride, watch the sunset, do something like that, stargaze, and then journal your experience. This is another one of those things where it's like, I'm trying to tell my nervous system that safety is safe. I'm telling my nervous system that good things are happening around me. Because when we're stuck in our 4Fs, at least when I was stuck in my 4Fs, I never stopped to look at a sunset. I never stopped to smell a flower. My husband would try to show me things all the time. I'm like, dude, I do not care. And it was because I was like, I'm busy freaking out over here. Like, I really want to stop and go look at a sunset, you know? But we want to like make ourselves do that because we're training our brain to believe again that safety is safe, that it is okay to stop for a minute, gaze at the sunset, look at the glory and the wonder of God and say, okay, this is a good thing. This is good. I'm safe right now. This is a good experience. The other one is a warm fuzzy, and it's the same thing. It's all about doing something that makes you feel warm and fuzzy inside. You know, whatever that is. Have coffee with a friend, snuggle on the couch with your Bible and your cup of coffee, connecting with your pet, anything like that. But the point of it is that we experience it and we notice it and journal about it. Like, just take a minute to be like, okay, this is a good feeling. This is a peaceful moment right now because we are usually moving so fast that we don't stop and acknowledge those tiny little moments. And so that's what that's for. Okay, the other thing that you can do, you can choose from this list, you can make declarations. This is, again, not something while we're in crisis. This is preventive, okay? A declaration is something that you do before you're having a panic attack. You know, it's a preventive thing. You don't want to do it in the middle. But because it just may not be helpful. But it might be helpful. It may be helpful, but you're going to create a list of affirmations and say them out loud. And bonus points if you include scripture. That's in there. And one of the things that you can put in there is in your declaration is that Jesus is healing my broken heart, according to Psalm 147:3. And learning how to process those comfort those emotions, and that can be part of your declaration, is that I'm learning to process and comfort my painful emotions. I am in this process. So when we're doing those declarations, you can actually make it like a progressive statement of like, this is what I'm learning to do. I'm figuring it out. I'm in the process of healing, which gives me hope. Another great thing that you can do is you can ground yourself. You can get grounding sheets. They have grounding shoes now. Go barefoot in the grass, except now it's cold, so that's not going to be fun. But do something like that to do grounding, because what happens when we are in our 4Fs is we feel disconnected from our body. It's like we feel like we turn away from ourselves. We turn away from our body. We don't know what's going on inside of our body. We just completely disconnect. And so when we ground, we kind of put ourselves back inside our body. And let me see, I got a question pop up. Can you get the same result from grounding on sand? Yes. Yes, I believe so. And if I'm wrong on that, then I believe so, because when I'm on the beach, I'm grounded like crazy. And so I believe that that's true. But I will check. I will double check on that. So another thing that you can do, one of the things that you can choose from your menu is you can do breathing exercises. And these, you can play around with breathing exercises all day long. You can go on YouTube to try to find different ones. They have great ones on YouTube. There's belly breathing, box breathing, 4-7-8 breathing, all those things that help you. And the reason why is that the vagus nerve, again, it connects with your lungs. And so when a lot of times when we are in our 4Fs, we have super shallow breathing and we don't realize it. It's just this like, it's like panting almost, and it's real shallow. And so whenever we begin to do deep breathing and we do it on purpose and we begin to just focus on the breathing, then that sends a signal to through our vagus nerve to our brain that we're safe. It's like, oh, okay, she doesn't have to shallow breathe anymore because she's not hiding from a burglar, like she can actually take some deep breaths. She can make some noise with her breathing now. And but when we do that, this is a great one to do when you are in a stressful situation. This is one of the body things that we can do that's super helpful. And I just showed you the vagus nerve basic exercise. That's where you put your hands behind your head. That's a great one to do. And then somatic exercises are some other really good things that you can do. And again, you can look these up on YouTube, but there is one that's really, really good. And I describe it in the homework. And it's where you lay on the ground and you're on your side. And I wish if I had room, I would take you with me to the ground, but I don't. So you're laying on the ground on your side. And I guess you could do it on your bed too, because the ground sometimes hurts. But you're going to have your arm up above your head. So you're going to be kind of laying with your head on your arm like this. And you're going to be laying on your side. And you're going to put your hand in front of you to brace yourself. Your hand is like on the ground in front of you to brace yourself. And what you will begin to do is to rock back and forth. Just rock back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And you will do that until you feel soothed and calm. And you can combine that with the breathing as well. And this is really helpful for me whenever I start to feel panic. This is my go-to move, is to lay on my side and rock back and forth. And again, that is sending signals through your vagus nerve to your brain that you're safe. And calm will begin to come back to your body. The parasympathetic nervous system will begin to engage again. It's really, really helpful. And then the last thing that I have on this menu, it's not the last one that's out there because you'll find lots of different ways that you can regulate. But the last one that I put on here, because I just didn't want to overwhelm you, is visualization exercise. Okay, now visualization is huge. It is the secret weapon of brain rewiring. Okay. So pay attention. This is your money's worth right here. This is so good. Okay. Your brain does not know the difference between whether you are experiencing something and whether you are imagining it. So, and this plays in two different ways. One, if you're a ruminator and you replay old scenarios over and over and over again, then you are going to re-traumatize yourself over and over and over again. However, if you decide that you are going to do visualization, this trick will work to your benefit, because when you do visualization and you put yourself in a really peaceful, in a really calm state, then your brain will believe that you're there, and it will trick your brain into activating that parasympathetic nervous system. It will begin to train your green zone to know that safety is safe. And the way you do it is you want it to last for a long time. So it is kind of a time consuming tool. So it's like a 30 to 60 minute tool that you're going to want to use, but it's so helpful. So if you close your eyes, take a few short breaths, and imagine yourself somewhere that brings you peace. So like for me, that's going to be the beach. Sometimes I imagine myself in Italy. I've never actually been there, but I imagine myself eating all the foods that I don't eat right now. I imagine myself eating all the pasta and walking along the sidewalk and, all those things. Just putting myself in a situation where I feel so peaceful. I feel so loved. Sometimes I will also invite Jesus into these visualizations where I'm just sitting on a bench with him and I'm having a conversation with him. And when you're doing it, you want to involve all five of your senses. You want to notice in your imagination, in your visualization, you want to call attention to, what do I smell? What do I see? What do I hear? What am I feeling? And I'm forgetting another one. Hearing, I don't know. Taste, smell, feel, taste. Okay. But you get what I'm saying. The five senses, you want to include all of that in your visualization. And again, you're going to want to do this for 30 to 60 minutes. And when you do that, it's one of the greatest setups for your brain to begin to heal. It just puts you in that parasympathetic state, and it will activate feelings of peace, feelings of joy, feelings of security, and you can take all of that into your day with you. And it's just a really, really great exercise to do. So this regulation menu, like I said, will be in your email tomorrow. And this is something that you're going to want to do twice a day. This is where we're going to start. This is the homework that you're going to do. And you can choose any of them. You can also choose your own. You don't have to choose from the ones that I put on there. You can choose your own, but what I want you to do is twice a day, you're going to do some regulation, because we're going to begin to train our brain to go into the green zone and to believe again that safety is safe. Okay? All right, Tiffany, you can go ahead and take that down. Now I have room for some questions. If anybody has any questions, you can, if not, I'm actually just going to call on somebody. But if you have any questions, you can like raise your hand or put your hand up. Like if you just want to, if you have a question about any of this. I was going to call on you anyway, Christy. I was like, I think I'm going to pick on Christy if nobody says anything.
Well, my question is, so exactly, we pick two of these, do these, and we journal about them.
Mm-hmm,
So
you can. Yep.
what's the journaling? Like, what are we writing in the journal?
Oh,
Like
gotcha.
just
Great question. So I will be giving you a journaling prompt. I think I introduce it next week or maybe the week after. So this is more just flowing however you want, just flow however it makes you feel. So if you're what was one of the first one? Like one of them was the warm fuzzy. So you're sitting there and maybe you and Denise are having coffee and you're feeling, you know what I'm saying? And you're feeling good. And then when you're done with it, just journal like that felt really good. That felt so good to connect with my friend today. I felt seen. I felt known. I really, that was good. I'm glad that happened, and so it's just reaffirming to our brain that safety is safe again. Because right now we're at that place of dysregulation where we don't feel like safety is safe. We think, but if I'm in my green zone, if I feel safe, bad things are going to happen. The other shoe is going to drop. I have to be prepared for the bad things that are going to happen. So I can't let myself enjoy what I'm experiencing. And so that's what the point of the regulation is, and especially all those ones about journaling is to say, nope, I experience joy. Nope, I do stop and look at the wonder of God, and I'm gonna journal about that. I'm just gonna say, God, you're so good. Wow, look at creation. Look how beautiful this is. It's just simply noticing those things, and the more we begin to notice safety, it actually sets up our brain to notice it more. So, for example, have you ever been like shopping for cars and what you want is, I want a red Dodge or whatever, I want a red truck. And you feel like you never see red trucks until it's in your brain. And now that's all I see. It shows up everywhere, right? And that's because we've tuned our brain into noticing it. When the red trucks were always there, we just never noticed it because we didn't care. And so when we begin to on purpose notice wonder, when we begin to on purpose notice that I've experienced warm, fuzzy things, when I begin to on purpose notice, notice wins and gratitude, when I begin to on purpose do that, it actually trains my brain to recognize it and find it without having to try super hard. And so it's just kind of rewiring us to begin to notice safety. Oh, safety is already there. I'm actually safe all the time. When I look at because when our 4Fs are engaged super bad, when we're in like a really dark place, we do feel like sometimes that we're in a war zone of sorts. It's like nothing feels safe, everything bad. And so when we can begin to just look around even at our room and go, no, I am safe. The ceiling is not going to cave in. The floor is pretty stable. This chair is holding me up. I actually am safe. And we can begin to teach our nervous system that we're safe enough. I don't have to be on such high alert because I am safe enough. I am in a place of safety. I do have things surrounding me that are safe right now. I am safe enough. And that's what that does. It primes us for that. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Awesome, no problem. I'm going to pick on you for a little bit longer if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you probably said this in your breakout room, but I just want to know because I didn't get to your breakout room. So tell me what you're looking for, what you want out of Joy Revival. What are some of your goals?
Oh goodness. I forget kind of what I said in there exactly, but
Yeah.
like I was telling them that I've had like different healing, they were calling it deliverance. Denise, I don't remember what we call it, but I've gone a few times and we've had inner healing and different things like that. And I feel like I've always had struggled with food and binging and things. So I guess over the years, I realized, there's a thing also food addiction, but there's also emotional eating.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've gotten the food addiction part. I understand when I'm not eating certain foods, I feel better, but somehow I'm always going back to those foods eventually at some point. I'm believing some lie that, I'm kind of like an alcohol. I told him like an alcoholic that's been, clean for 10 years, think, okay, I'm doing well enough. I could probably handle it now. And food is just so much more acceptable than, any of the other stuff. So it's like people don't care if you're eating 3 donuts or whatever, and not like if they saw 3 bottles of, whiskey or something, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? So it's like, so in my, so basically what I wanted to get out of this is like, the rewiring of the brain. Like I feel like I've learned so much over the years and I know, but I was missing something,
Yeah.
like there's something I'm missing. Cause obviously I think for 3 or 4 years now, I've done really well for like 6 or 7 months, I feel like, and then I'm struggling for the rest of the time,
Yeah.
and I thought for a while it was like maybe seasonal depression. I thought different things. And then I realized just recently, um, like my mother passed away in October 15 years ago. And I started always getting sad about around then. I'm like, yeah, I know. I get sad. I know it's coming, and then the seasonal depression. And then I guess I feel like God's shown me that, maybe it's not, it's a trauma thing. It's like, it's my body remembering that. And,
Yep.
and my grandma died 5 months after my mom did. And during those 5 months, I didn't realize it recently, but she was very mean and said a lot of bad things and, made me feel a lot of things during those 5 months. And I thought it was just, so I just, this whole time thought it was something else. And I'm realizing, okay, I think I was traumatized during those months.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, okay, I need to figure out how to get healing, rewire my brain. That's, so I was just looking for something. And then I saw you on the internet and I was like, this might be it, so that's why.
Oh, good. That's great. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for being vulnerable. And yes, absolutely. That's what we're going to do because I understand the seasonal thing. My dad also died in October 16 years ago. I forget, I've lost count, but I've done the same thing of having the seasonal depression, but it was actually linked to a trauma that happened during that time period and my body remembers. And so that's one of the things that we are going to learn in this class is about how, um, when something's not right with your body, check your emotions first, And
Right.
that's what I notice is whenever my neck and my back are hurting, I want to reach for like a Tylenol or an ibuprofen, but I probably better reach for my journal because that really means I'm triggered. That actually means that something happened. So one of the things that we are going to learn in this class is how do I recognize my triggers and how do I recognize, um, when, because in my everyday life, stuff happens all the time. And we'll learn about this in a couple of classes from now. Actually, I forget the order, but we're going to learn about this, that in my everyday life, stuff happens and it's going to trigger me. Like the trial comes, it's going to create emotion in me. But that emotion, my brain remembers old emotions. And my brain will begin to pull from something from my past in order to help me interpret what's going on in my right now situation. It thinks it's helping us, our brain does. But it sometimes is not so helpful because it opens up some pretty ugly stuff, that causes us to react way up here when the situation is actually way down here. We may not need to react so heightened to it. And that's because, but when we recognize it and when we notice it, so here I am in my right now circumstance, and I realize I'm way up here. Well, that means I know something's been opened. We'll call it, what we call it is a file got opened. And so that means I need to focus on that. And so I'll teach us how to do that. And so um yeah, it just gives you hope. And I mean, I processed it this week. I've had more files open, I think, than it like in a span. And I'm like, what is going on with me? So I'm doing my journal like twice a day, 'cause I keep having these files open and all this stuff. And I'm like, ah, come on. But it's just, that's what happens is everyday life happens. And our brain remembers stuff. We've been through stuff and our brain remembers it. So we just have to stop and go, okay, brain, what's happening here? I want to understand you better. I want to understand what it is that you need. And so, and then we give it what it needs. It usually just needs some comfort instead of us, you know, comforting through alcohol or drugs or food or binge watching TV or doom scrolling or whatever it is that we do to get our comfort. And so, okay, does anybody else have any other questions? Thank you, Christy, for sharing that. I appreciate you so much. And Tiffany, do we have any closing announcements? I don't think that we do. I don't think that we do.
Yeah, I don't think we do either,
Okay.
except for that, we will have this class again next week, same time.
Mhm.
And yeah, we look forward to seeing you guys then.
Yeah. And so if you do end up with questions this week, so this week is light homework. It's just 2 of those per day, which feels like a lot, but just wait until I start giving you the journaling homeworks. But it's light homework compared to what's comes later. But if you end up having any questions this week, make sure that you email us and I will answer it like at the beginning of class. So just feel free to reach out. Don't be afraid to reach out. If you have questions or you're confused about something, ask. Okay. So, and that's it for tonight. I pray that you guys have an amazing night of sleep, and I will see you in 1 week. Okay.